I'm Clint Walker, and you're watching GVTV News.
Thanks, Clint, and I'm Randy Hansen. In today's World News headlines, one dead in Pakistan as anti-film and French cartoon protests continue to sweep through the Middle East. A U.S. diplomat visits Libya in wake of ambassador's death. And in Somalia, journalists among 15 killed in suicide bombings. And in Syria, scores killed amid rising violence. The U.S. condemns Iran's support for Syrian government. And Panetta says surge troops withdrawn from Afghanistan. And former commander in Afghanistan tapped to lead U.S. military in Africa. And Palestinian activists to end hunger strike amid hopes for release. And Brown-Warren spar over economy in debate for Massachusetts Senate seat. And Obama questioned over failure to pass immigration reform. And Romney vows not to round up people around the country and deport them. And Romney campaign co-chair resigns to lobby for Wall Street. An Australian official condemns cranks and crazies in GOP. And Quebec government cancels tuition hike that sparked mass protests. And Sue Quay voices support for jailed Pussy Riot members. GVTV News is broadcast Grass Valley Television, a division of Rural Counties Television Network, whose focus is on community involvement, and we also air on NCTV. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's first world news story, at least one person has been killed in Pakistan as protesters filled the streets across several cities in what is expected to be a massive day action against U.S.-made film, Innocent of Muslim. The Pakistani government declared Friday a public holiday to allow people to demonstrate against the film, which mocks the Muslim prophet Muhammad. Pakistan shut down cell phone services in major cities as officials moved to block roads and U.S. diplomats' missions. In the Pakistani city of Peshawar, a driver named Muhammad Amir was shot dead by police as he drove through an area where protesters were torching a movie theater. Dozens of deaths, including that of U.S. ambassador to Libya, have already been linked to protests and violence that swept through the Muslim countries around the world as a result of the film, which was not true. French cartoon depicting the Muhammad pornographic pose as only adds to the global outcry. At least 50 people were reportedly injured as police fired live rounds and tear gas. Protests were reported in multiple other countries Thursday, including Indonesia, Iran, Afghanistan, and hundreds of people held a peaceful march in Kabul and chanted anti-American slogans. U.S. Deputy Secretary of State William Burns held talks in Libya Thursday with the country's new prime minister and head of the National Congress following last week's attack on the U.S. Embassy in Benghazi that killed U.S. Ambassador and 3 of his staff. Burns attended a ceremony to honor Ambassador Christopher Stevens, and he said, "This is a hard moment for all of us. It is a moment of shared loss. It is a moment of shared hope and shared responsibility. We've lost 4 wonderful colleagues. We've lost a brilliant ambassador full of courage and skill and passionate determination to help Libyans, to help all of you realize the promise of your revolution, and to make reality of a free Libya, a Libya al-Hurra." At least 15 people were killed and 20 wounded in Somalia after a pair of suicide bombers struck a cafe in Mogadishu. The spot was frequented by reporters, and 3 journalists, including a new director for Somali National Television, were among the dead. In Syria, at least 54 people were reportedly killed and dozens more wounded when the government air strikes triggered an explosion at a gas station in the northern part of the country. By some counts, nearly 200 people were killed across Syria Thursday amidst an escalating crisis between the forces loyal to Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and rebels opposed to his regime. Meanwhile, at the UN Security Council, the United States and other Western countries condemned Iran for supplying weapons to the Syrian government. This is U.S. Ambassador United Nations Susan Rice. She said Iran's armed exports to the murderous Assad regime in Syria are a particular concern. As a panel of experts has concluded, Syria is now the, quote, central party to illicit Iranian arms transfers, end quote. States in the region must therefore work together and redouble their efforts to deny, inspect, and seize illicit Iranian shipments, including transfer via air corridors, in line to the cargo inspection provisions of Security Council Resolution 1929. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta has announced the last of the more than 30,000 troops that entered Afghanistan following President Obama's orders for a surge in 2009 have now left the country. Panetta claimed the surge had accomplished its mission to curbing the Taliban's momentum and bolstering Afghan security forces. Nearly 70,000 U.S. troops remain in Afghanistan amidst ongoing violence there, including an uptick of so-called green-on-blue attacks in Afghan forces against foreign troops. And the Pentagon has selected a former top Army commander who served in Afghanistan to oversee the military operations in Africa. General David Rodriguez helped orchestrate the 2009 surge of troops in Afghanistan and also served 2 tours in duty in Iraq. Rodriguez still needs formal approval from the White House and confirmation from the Senate before replacing General Carter Ham as head of African Command. The Obama administration has taken a number of steps to expand the U.S. military presence in Africa, ramped up the use of covert operations by the military and intelligence agencies. A Palestinian activist has agreed to end his hunger strike amidst signs of global progress in a global campaign for his release. Zakari Zaboui, or I'm not exactly sure of his name, but close, has been imprisoned by the Palestinian Authority since May. He's been on hunger strike since September 9th. There were reports he could be released as early as Sunday. Republican Senator Scott Brown faces Democratic challenger Elizabeth Warren in the first debate in their closely watched Massachusetts Senate race Thursday. Brown began by attacking Elizabeth Warren for claiming in the past documents that she was Native American. Warren defended herself, saying she had been told growing up in Oklahoma that her mother was part of the Delaware and part Cherokee. The candidates sparred over the number of issues during the hour-long debate, including Iran, women's rights, and economic policy. Senator Scott Brown said the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said Professor Warren's tax policies and her approach to them are the greatest threat to free enterprise. The NFIB said her tax policies could cut 700,000 jobs, 17,000 in Massachusetts. These are the independent groups who have analyzed and pointed this out. I'm going to protect the hardworking men and women, the job creators, the people who are getting up in the middle of the night and creating jobs and protecting those interests. John Keller said that was about 15 seconds. You take the same, and then we're moving on. Elizabeth Warren replied, all right, so I think the point here is the Chamber of Commerce hasn't talked about my particular proposals. What I'm talking about is how Scott Brown has already voted and also talking about what he said in his own voice last week. He wanted to make crystal clear, and that is he would let taxes go up for 98% of the families in order to protect tax breaks for the top 2%. I wouldn't do that, unquote. In an appearance at the Spanish-language network Univision on Thursday, President Obama faced tough questions over his immigration policies, including his failure to fulfill the campaign promise to enact comprehensive immigration reform during his first year in office. Obama called the lack of immigration reform the biggest failure of his presidency, but attempted to shift blame for the failure to the Republicans. And he said, when we talked about the immigration reform in the first year, that was before the economy was on the verge of collapse. Lehman Brothers had collapsed, the stock market was collapsing, and so my first priority was to make sure we prevented us from going into the Great Depression. And I think everybody here remembers where we were 4 years ago. What I confess I did not expect, so I'm happy to take responsibility for being naive here, is that Republicans who had previously supported comprehensive immigration reform, my opponent in 2008, who had been a champion of it and who attended those meetings, suddenly would walk away, even though I think that the Democrats had control of the houses and the presidency at that time. Obama's comments came as his administration faced scrutiny over deporting and detaining a record number of undocumented people. Nearly 400,000 immigrants were deported during the last fiscal year. Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney also fielded questions about immigration during a Wednesday appearance on Univision. Romney attacked Obama's deferred action policy that allows some undocumented young people to remain in the country temporarily, saying a more permanent solution was needed. Romney was accused during the appearance of avoiding specific details about a possible permanent solution and asked to respond with a yes or no whether he would deport undocumented youth. And Mitt Romney replied, "We're not going to round up people around the country and deport them. That's not I said during my primary campaign, time and again, we are not going to round up 12 million people, that includes kids and parents, and have everyone deported. Our system isn't to deport people. We need to provide a long-term solution. I've described the fact that I would be in support of a program that people who served in our military could be permanent residents in the United States. Unlike the president, when I'm president, I will actually do what I promised. I will put in place an immigration reform plan that solves this issue." Romney's national campaign co-chair, Tim Pawlenty, is resigning from the campaign to lobby for Wall Street. The former Minnesota governor will head the Financial Services Roundtable, which represents J.P. Morgan, Chase, Wells Fargo, and other financial firms. Before working for Romney's campaign, Pawlenty was considered a potential candidate for the president, later as a possible vice presidential pick. An Australian public official has issued an unusually frank condemnation of U.S. Republicans in a conference speech in Sydney on Friday. Australian Treasury Wayne Swan cited certain segments of the Republican Party as a leading threat to the world's economy and rebuked them in stark terms. He said, "Let's be blunt and acknowledge the biggest threat to the world's biggest economy are the cranks and crazies that are taking over a part of the Republican Party despite President Obama's goodwill and strong efforts. The national interest there was held hostage by the rise of the extreme Tea Party wing of the Republican Party, and there can be few things more alarming in public policy than a political movement which was genuinely prepared to see the government of the United States default on its obligation in order to score a political point." Aren't they upside down in Australia? In Canada, a province of Quebec, the new government has canceled a tuition hike that sparked a mass protest earlier this year. New Premier Pauline Marois planned repealing the fee hike. Students have launched a massive strike over the increase of hundreds of thousands taking the streets wearing red squares. Quebec's tuition will now return to just more than $2,000. And the Russian punk group Pussy Riot will be awarded the Lenin Ono Peace Award by the artist-activist Yoko Ono in New York City. 3 members of the Pussy Riot were sentenced last month and 2 years in prison for staging a protest against Russian leader Vladimir Putin inside the Orthodox Cathedral. Pyotr Verzilov, I'm not sure I'm bad on those names. On Thursday, Pussy Riot received a boost from Burmese pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi, who currently on her first visit to the United States in more than 3 decades. And she said, "I don't see why people shouldn't sing whatever it is that they want to sing. There's nothing wrong with singing. I think the only reason why people should not sing is what they are saying is deliberately insulting or if they sing terribly. I think that would be the best reason for not singing at all. So I would like the whole group to be released as soon as possible." That's it for World News today. Sorry, my tongue was twisted a little bit, but long weekend at the Draft Horse Classic. Here's another one of our underwriters.
Soundcheck Music Center, the Rock and Roll Connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
No one needs anyone, they don't even just pretend. John is an American. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter and pictures in the blotter, not from these actual events, but used for visual aid only. These public records are obtained from daily logs issued from Nevada County Law Enforcement, Grass Valley Police Department on Wednesday. 8:23 a.m. a report was taken from 100 block of Park Avenue of vandalism at a school. And 8:56 a.m. a report was taken from 300 block of West Main Street of a dog inside a vehicle. Second call was made at 10:35 p.m. Dog was impounded. Contraband was located in the vehicle as well. 10:13 a.m. a report was taken from 300 block of Centennial Avenue of warehouse had been broken into and brass stolen. And 10:42 a.m. a report was taken from 200 block of South Church Street of graffiti on an electrical box. 11:20 a.m. a report was taken from 900 block of Plaza Drive of someone had taken a chair from a locked patio area and left trash behind. And 12:14 p.m. a woman from Rough and Ready Highway and Bithany Springs Road reported someone shot something at her vehicle and shattered a window. 3:10 p.m. a report was taken from 200 block of Sutton Way of a physical fight. 4:22 p.m. a report was taken from 300 block of Hill Street of a theft of fencing. And 5:03 p.m. a report was taken from Condon Park of a man with a gun who could not be located. And 5:12 p.m. a man from 100 block of Park Avenue wanted to turn himself in after buying cocaine. And 5:25 p.m. a report was taken from Neal Street of 7 or 8 people getting high. No drugs were located. 7:24 p.m. a report was taken from 100 block of West Bear Hill Drive of theft of a vehicle. Keys had been left on the floorboard. That's a good place for him. 7:24 p.m. a man from South Auburn Street reported he was being pursued by methamphetamine addicts. 8:33 p.m. a report was taken from 100 block of Mill Street of a man trying to light his face on fire. He could not be located. 11:58 p.m. a report was taken from 1900 block of Sutton Way of 4 men looking in vehicles and possibly trying to break in. No one was located. They're not having very much luck finding anybody, are they? Thursday, 4:44 a.m., a woman from 100 block of Highland Courts reported the theft of money from a vehicle. In Nevada County Sheriff's Office on Wednesday, 9:18 a.m. A report was taken from 14,000 block of Rough and Ready Highway of a man was refusing to return a baby. He kicked in a door and broke a window in a vehicle. Second caller reported he might be drunk and impaired. He was arrested on suspicion of vandalism, violating a restraining order, and violating probation. 9:26 a.m. a report was taken from 10,000 block of Quail Creek Road of theft of items from vehicles. And 9:30 a.m. a report was taken from 10,000 block of Quail Creek Road reporting the theft of a purse from an unlocked vehicle. Notice the word unlocked. 11:51 a.m. a report was taken from 11,000 block of Lost Ranch Way of possible fraud. 1:14 p.m. a report was taken from 15,000 block of Fay Road of vicious dogs. Traps were set. 1:17 p.m. a report was taken from 10,000 block of Quail Creek Road of a burglary to a shop. And 2:43 p.m. a report was taken from 12,000 block of Shady Creek Drive of a Craigslist fraud. 3:08 p.m. a report was taken from a hospital of a person who had been injured during an assault at Bennett Street homeless camp. The victim was uncooperative. 4:47 p.m. a man from 10,000 block of Quail Creek Road reported people refusing to leave his property. He could not be located. 5:39 p.m. a report was taken from 17,000 block of Penn Valley Drive of a horse stuck on a pipe. It was freed. And 6:25 p.m. a man from 13,000 block of LaBar Meadow Roads reported a possible Craigslist scam. At 10:45 p.m. a report was taken from 16,000 block of Banner Quaker Hill Road of a vehicle driving at a high rate of speed nearly hit a building. Caller reported hearing the vehicle crash. On Thursday, 12:16 a.m. a report was taken from West Hacienda Drive of loud music. Another call was made at 1:07 a.m. And 3:17 a.m. a woman from 11,000 block of Cedar Ridge Drive reported someone walked around a property who then jiggled a door handle. 7:22 a.m. a report was taken from 20,000 block of Wolf Creek Road of squatters in a residence. And Nevada City Police Department on Wednesday at 2:37 p.m. a report was taken from Commercial Street of people smoking and drinking on the boardwalk. 9:06 p.m. a man from 500 block of Searles Avenue reported the theft of a wallet from a locker. And Thursday, 12:48 a.m. a report was taken from Callanan Park of a physical fight. And that's it for the blotter today. Now, another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. Christopher's Old World Deli and Catering Company has brought its delicious food and service downtown Grass Valley. Like desserts? They got 'em. You like international style lunches? They got 'em. Christopher's Deli and Catering for parties, get-togethers, weddings, or whatever. Open 7 days a week. In today's local news headlines, Grass Valley Police want your unwanted prescription drugs. And special report from Juan Brown in Hawaii. Saturday, September 29th, Grass Valley, on that day at 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., the Grass Valley Police Department and the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, will give the public another opportunity to prevent pill abuse and theft by ridding their homes of potentially dangerous, expired, unused, and unwanted prescription drugs. Bring your medications to the disposal either the following Grass Valley locations: Kmart 111 West McKnight Way, Rite Aid 720 Sutton Way, or Save Mart 2054 Nevada City Highway. Service is free and anonymous with no questions asked. Last April, citizens turned in a record-breaking 552,161 pounds, or almost 276 tons, of unwanted and expired medication for safe, proper disposal at 50. That was over 50 states. That was all over the place. When the results of the 4 take-back days to date are combined, the DEA and the state, local, and tribal law enforcement and community partners have removed over 1.5 million tons of medications out of circulation. This initiative addresses a vital public safety and public health issue. Medicines that languish in home cabinets are highly susceptible to diversion, misuse, and abuse. Rates of prescription drug abuse in the U.S. are alarmingly high, as the number of accidental poisonings and overdoses due to these drugs. Studies show that a majority of abused prescription drugs are obtained from family and friends, including from the home medicine cabinet. In addition, Americans are now advised that their usual methods for disposing of unused medicines, flushing them down the toilet or throwing them in the trash, both pose potentially safety and health hazards. 4 days after the first event, Congress passed the Secure and Responsible Drug Disposal Act of 2010, which amends the Controlled Substances Act to allow an ultimate user of controlled substance medications to dispose of them by delivering them to entities authorized by the Attorney General to accept them. The Act also allows the Attorney General to authorize long-term care facilities to dispose of their residents' controlled substances in certain instances. DEA is drafting regulations to implement the Act, a process that can take as long as 24 months. Until the new regulations are in place, local law enforcement agencies like the Grass Valley Police Department and the DEA will continue to hold prescription drug take-back events every few months. If you want more information, you can contact Captain Rex Marks, 530-477-4600, or rkmarks@gvpd.net. And here is our special roving reporter story from Juan Brown.
Morning, Randy. I'm coming to you from Na Willy Willy Cove in Lahui on the Garden Island of Kauai this morning with your report, wind, sand, and sun report for GVTV News. The weather today, the trade winds have been replaced by a low pressure area just offshore here, and as a result, the weather's turned a little humid, steamy, and churned up the seas and made the surf kind of rough today. So as a result, not too many beginners out here surfing today, mostly just the experts out here braving the rough seas. Breaking news from here in Lahui is that the Na Willy Willy Tavern has reopened. Now, do you remember that scene in Star Wars, that famous bar scene where all the different aliens from the different planets came into the bar and they played that crazy music? That's what the Na Willy Willy Tavern's like on your average evening here in Lahui. Sand, Sun, and Surf and Tavern Report. This is your roving reporter Juan Brown in Nawiliwili Harbor, Kalapaki Bay, Lihue, Kauai. For GVTV News on NCTV. Say all that 3 times fast, Randy.
Thanks, Juan, but I can barely pronounce Hawaii. I admire the hard work you have to do on your travels. That's it for local news today. We would like to thank Amy Goodman, Reuters, Associated Press, Ubanet, Sierra Foothills Report, the Union, local law enforcement, and others for the sourcing of our news, and you for watching. Remember, we are the only visual video news media in Nevada County, and we are free for you to watch 7 days a week. If you have local stories and would like to have them aired on our news, please email us with the story to 750 words, and if you have pictures, please include them in the email to grassvalleytelevision@gmail.com. Please include some type of contact information for verification of facts. You can watch this broadcast on Comcast Cable, NCTV, Channel 11 in Nevada County, 8 a.m., 3 p.m., 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, 10:30 a.m., Saturday, and 8 p.m. Sunday, and Suddenlink Channel 16 in Truckee and Alta Sierra, same times. We also are streamed on the internet, NCTV's Digital Media Center.